Okay, you've probably seen it by now. The internet is absolutely buzzing about Avengers Doomsday. We've gotten what seems to be the very first reaction from inside Marvel Studios. And boy, the hype train has officially left the station. But is this first reaction everything it seems to be? Let's dig in and find out what's really going on.
That's right, the movie is still a ways off, but it's apparently already been screened for some key insiders. And you know how it goes. The first whispers about what the Russo brothers are cooking up for us are starting to sneak out from behind those tightly sealed doors.
And there it is. This is the word that has set the internet on fire. One simple, incredibly powerful claim. The movie is amazing. I mean, that's the kind of early buzz that sends fan excitement into a whole other galaxy. But it's never that simple, is it?
And this, right here, this is the real question. In the wild world of movie hype, the source is absolutely everything. So today, we're gonna play detective. We're gonna trace this rumor all the way back to its origins and figure out what's really being said, and just as importantly, who's saying it. So it turns out this amazing claim is actually coming from two completely different places. And they could not be more different from each other. One is a major, respected industry publication, and the other, an anonymous online account. To get the full picture, we really need to look at both. Okay, so let's break this down. On one side, you've got Variety magazine. We're talking a legit, respected trade publication. Their info comes from real journalistic sourcing, and it's often meant to manage expectations for the industry and, for shareholders. On the other side, you've got an anonymous scooper. Their claims are unconfirmed, often from unverified sources, and they're designed to do one thing: build fan hype. Understanding that fundamental difference is, it's the key to this whole thing. All right, first up, let's look at the professionals. There was a recent article in Variety, and it was mostly about the new leadership at Disney. But buried inside was this one tiny but very interesting little tidbit about Avengers Doomsday.
So here's the exact line from the article. Now pay close attention to the language here. Executives are pleased. Look, that's definitely a good thing. It's positive. But pleased is, it's a bit more measured and corporate sounding than amazing, right? It's good news, for sure, but it doesn't exactly scream runaway, mind-blowing masterpiece.
Now, what's really fascinating is how Variety even got this info. The article never says who its sources are, which almost certainly means this little nugget was giving on background. And as you can see, that means it's basically secondhand info. It's not Kevin Feige himself on the record saying, "I'm pleased." It's someone telling a journalist that other people are pleased. It's a subtle but important distinction. And we have to remember where the film is right now. The executives who are pleased, they're seeing an early rough cut of the movie, not the finished product. We actually know from David Harbour that reshoots are still planned for this thing. So while it's fantastic that they're happy with this work in progress, a whole lot can still change before it ever hits theaters. Okay, so now let's switch gears. Because right after that very measured Variety report came out, our second source, this anonymous online scooper who goes by Cryptic 4K Qual, jumped in with a much, much bolder claim. And there you have it. This is where that magic word amazing actually comes from. But look at the second part. This scooper is claiming the movie is a literal adaptation of Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars saga, which is, for my money, one of the most beloved and incredibly complex comic storylines ever written. That is a massive claim to make. Now, as unbelievably exciting as that sounds to a comic fan like me, it's probably a good idea to take this with a giant grain of salt. There are actually a few really big reasons to question whether Doomsday is going to be a literal adaptation of that story. So, there are a few issues here. First off, even if it was a direct adaptation, that doesn't automatically make it a great movie. Second, and this is a big one, the Russo brothers have never, ever done a direct one-to-one copy of a comic. Just think about Infinity War versus the Infinity Gauntlet comic. They remix things. And third, the little bits we've seen so far in teasers and post-credit scenes just don't perfectly line up with that plot. But honestly, the biggest reason to be skeptical is just how incredibly complicated that comic book is. I mean, just look at this. The Secret Wars comic saga is unbelievably dense. You've got the Black Priests, the Beyonders, God Emperor Doom, life rafts jumping between universes, Molecule Man, the entire 616 and 1610 universes collapsing. Trying to cram even half of that into a single movie would be almost impossible, without losing everything that makes the story so special in the first place.
Now, to be fair, the core concept from that comic run, incursions, has absolutely been introduced into the MCU. We got this nearly word-for-word explanation from Reed Richards himself, so clearly the comics are a huge inspiration for where things are headed. But inspiration is a very, very different thing from a direct, literal adaptation. So you've got these two very different pieces of information floating around. What's the big takeaway from all this? Well, it really all comes down to learning how to navigate the hype cycle and just understanding why a piece of information is being put out there and who it's for. So here's a simple little guide for you. First, always identify the source. A measured pleased in Variety is probably for the industry folks. An all caps amazing on Twitter is for the fans. Second, look for corroboration. Is anyone else reporting the same thing? And finally, always remember that movies this big are a work in progress right up until they hit that big screen. At the end of the day, it's fun to be excited. And hey, the news that executives are pleased with Doomsday really is good news. But as the hype keeps building over the next year, it's smart to keep these tools in your back pocket. So I'll just leave you with this question. The next time a huge leak drops online, what's the first thing you're going to look for?